Yeah, welcome to Can Do FM, the SportZone show. And this week, my guest is John Horne, who's a director at Hawcoat Park Limited there up at Hawcoat Lane. And John's also the chairman of the rugby section. So, hello, John. How are you doing, mate? I haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah, very well, Tony. Yeah, thanks to you.
Yeah, great, mate. So, John, just for the listeners to understand and set the scene a little bit, I do understand that when you were younger, I do remember that you actually used to play for what was Vickers Sports Club back then, but you used to play for Hawcoat Park Rugby Union team. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm a local lad, and to be honest, I've played rugby league at the technical school, and played a little bit of under-18 rugby league for Walney at the time. But when I was about 15 or 16, one of the real stalwarts at Vickers Rugby Union, Will Haywood, suggested I might enjoy the social side at Vickers, and I started playing for Vickers Colts. And it was a hard decision, but I decided to go down the rugby union route, and mainly from the social side, to be quite honest. I had some really good times as a Colt, and then moving through into the seniors and enjoying the company of the lads. And to be honest, I played all my rugby career at Vickers Rugby Union, as it was then, part of Vickers Sports Club.
Yeah, the old Wilf Haywood you mentioned there, John, he was a bit of a legend. Was he the coach?
No, he sort of was on the committee, and he was involved in running the Colts team at the time. So he was, but he also typically, you remember the good old days of when Vickers had an apprentice school. The first day in the apprentice, he used to go in and say, "You look a big sort of lad, but do you fancy playing rugby union up at Vickers?" And he used to tap up and get quite a lot, as you recall. Most local lads found an apprentice in some form there, and he persuaded quite a few to come up. I didn't go down the Vickers work route myself, but he did see me playing a bit of rugby league and suggested I might should try out. But at that time, people were just playing as much sport as possible. I was playing sort of on a Saturday morning for Barrow Boys, Saturday afternoon for Vickers Colts. You just couldn't get enough sport, as you know, at that time. Times changed, but that's how it worked.
Yeah, were you telling me before we came on air, John, that you actually was being looked at by England as a schoolboy?
No, I was very fortunate actually to my headmaster at the technical school was Arthur Spencer, and I played for Barrow Boys, and I was fortunate to go for Lancashire schoolboy trials, and we played Yorkshire and over in Bradford. And that afternoon, I was told I was selected to go on a tour to France for England with England schoolboys, which was absolutely tremendous as a 16-year-old. And I can't thank people like the late Arthur Spencer as my headmaster at the school, but also Des Slavin. He wasn't my teacher; he was teacher at Alfred Barrow, but he took me for trials through to Lancashire, to Wigan, Widnes, all over the place. So people like that I've got so much respect for, that put so much in as a volunteer at school level.
So winding the years on then, John, there you are now back at Hawcoat Park. How long have you been a director on the board there?
Well, I've been chairman of the rugby section for 16, 17 years, to be quite honest. All my life has been at Vickers Sports Club, and to be honest, I've only been a director for maybe 18 months or so. To be honest, like all clubs, we're struggling a bit, and I retired, and I just felt it's important that the club survived. So to do that, I tried to help and volunteer on the club side, as well as the work that I do to ensure that the rugby section's still thriving.
So I do remember you playing up at when it was Vickers Sports Club, John. So after you finished playing, and before you became the sort of responsible for the rugby union, were you coaching at all?
No, I never went down the coaching route. I tried a little bit of reffing, but I just generally supported the club. I was having to do a little bit of travelling with my work, and late on I actually did a correspondence course for a qualification that was quite intensive. So I couldn't quite, for 4 or 5 years, I couldn't quite put the work in terms of coaching, etc. But I always stayed involved with the club. And to be honest, the thing that's made the club so successful, certainly on the rugby side, is all the ex-players are still involved, and it's a really good social crack, in all honesty. And as you mentioned, there's quite a few like Wilf Haywood that provide the crack, and it's the camaraderie is something that I wouldn't swap, and I've enjoyed so much, to be honest, Tony.
Yeah, well, I did come and watch Vickers' second team game. Well, it must have been about 10 years ago now, and Nobby Clark, who I used to bump into at Vickers in the yard occasionally, he was still playing at 60.
Yes, that's right. I mean, Nobby's an absolute legend at the club, and he's one of many. But at the time, if there was injuries, he wouldn't let the side down, and he'd put his body on the line and play, put his hand up to play. Much to the disdain of his wife Pauline, but the lads come first, and if they were struggling, he would put his hand up and play prop forward. He's so much respect for people like Nobby that just got the club running through the veins, and he's similar to many sort of clubs up and down the country. They need people and characters like Nobby Clark, and he's one of a few at the club, to be honest. Yeah.
So, what's the big difference, John, between your days there with Wilf and Nobby and playing in that sort of setup to today's crop of players and people who support them? Is there a big difference?
There is, to be honest. There just seems to be a mindset. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, our mindset, you just couldn't play enough sport. We were playing rugby on a Saturday, having nights out, getting home very late, early in the morning, then going to play Sunday league football at 11 o'clock, still full of beer, to be honest. But you just couldn't play enough sport. But I think the main problem is, and it's a real concern I have at the rugby club, is the junior side, to be honest. A lot of our successful teams have been built around our junior section, and that sort of conveyor belt of teams coming through almost on block. We've had quite recently Colts teams that were successful and they've stepped up to senior rugby, but there's just not the mindset from a very early age to play rugby in schools. Hats off to the local sort of rugby league. They've got very good sets up in terms of the youth, and that's where we're struggling a bit, to be honest, in terms of that youth. So it does concern me when the current crop of players go where our next players are going to be coming along from, to be honest, Tony. And that's something we're really sort of conscious of, really. I mean, we need to probably work with some of the rugby league clubs and find out, lads, with the summer rugby and the winter rugby, etc., and have crossovers that way, in all honesty. But we are playing a little bit catch up in terms. I mean, part of the issue is, we've got things like the RFU have made some really big cutbacks. We used to have sort of local development officers, and they're just not, our guy that used to cover Cumbria now covers Cumbria, Northumberland, Durham. So his resources are just spread so across. So we just can't get him to go into schools and encourage people to play. So it's almost the situation having contacts that are teachers and trying to persuade. But at one point, we had a really thriving junior section, and unfortunately, we don't have that, and that really is a concern for us at the club, to be honest.
Okay, so you haven't actually got a young rugby union team now, is that?
No, we did have, but for varying sort of reasons in terms of getting sort of volunteers and just the general interest, to be honest. And as I say, we have lost out to the rugby league, who have sort of captured that market, in all honesty. And,
I mean, I would have thought rugby union was quite, I don't know, a bit more complex to teach kids than rugby league. It's got quite a few more rules about it, hasn't it? Is that one of the reasons why?
Possibly, but in all honesty, at that level, you don't get down to them. I mean, I don't understand the changing all the time, the rules. I mean, I watch a game on telly and it's so difficult to understand, even for me that's been involved in it. To be honest, rugby's rugby for me. The basics are the same in terms of passing, tackling, coaching, that sort of thing. And to be honest, the intricacies of line outs and mauling and all that comes on it later on, to be honest, at that younger end. Certainly under 14 at rugby union, you don't start sort of line outs till then. It's just those basics of both games, really, of an oval-shaped ball and passing it and running it, to be honest, at the younger end, to get them interested.
Well, I suppose, John, it's very similar sort of in the ladies' game as well. I watched England and France. They played them twice over the last 2 weekends. The games were absolutely fantastic.
Yes, the development there is unbelievable. It really is. And fair play. I've got daughters myself, and I wasn't sort of overly keen at first of ladies rugby. Well, when you see it's the same principles apply, the camaraderie at this junior level, and we've seen it sort of junior clubs once they've managed to start sort of ladies teams. I think they support the bars as much as the lads do, in all honesty. So it's an important part of that social side and inequality, and making sure that everybody's available to play, whatever their age, to be honest, and gender.
Is there any plans in the future for perhaps encouraging ladies to play rugby union at Hawcoat Park?
We would like to, yes. Certainly, as I say, at the moment, we a little bit sort of, for the size of the club, it's the change in facilities and the showers, etc., etc. But we did have a few years ago a chap called Mark Harper that was from out of town that was based in this area, and he specialised in sort of ladies coaching rugby, but unfortunately he was headhunted and went down to South Lancashire, where he was originally from, and was running sort of ladies teams there. And he would have been a good contact to have at the club and try and develop that, which we did at one stage, but it never really sort of took off, to be honest.
Yeah, because one of the exciting things at the moment, John, isn't it's their first game on Sundays. Barra Ladies Rugby League team make their debut this weekend. They're away to Halifax, so that'll be a big game for them. So that seems to be coming on,
And just below that at sort of level, that's great to see. It'd be great for that higher level to succeed. But as you're probably aware, at Hawcoat Park, they use the juniors use the training facilities, the girls, on a Saturday. And for the last few Saturdays, I've been up there, and I've been really impressed at the numbers and the quality of what's taking place there. So they're getting that enjoyment in it, which is that sort of lower end, rather than your sort of almost your professional sort of Super League type sort of ladies rugby. The important thing, it filters down to everybody to enjoy, and to see the numbers that we've had from the Barrow Rugby Connection in terms of the enjoying side of it. That's brilliant to see, to be honest. I've seen that on the Saturdays I've been up there. Yeah, so it's something we would like to develop. Yeah.
Yeah, so on the senior side then, John, so you've got a senior team, haven't you?
Yeah, we're hanging on to two teams. To be honest, the good old days, we had 4 or 5 teams, and our friends down the road, Furness, had 4 or 5 teams, but that's gradually whittled away. And at the moment, we're hanging on to a second team, to be honest, which is so important to have when you're running a first team. You need to give lads the chance. And to be honest, a lot of the lads at the A team are playing social rugby. They're enjoying the rugby, but the important thing, they are enjoying it. And quite a few of them have perhaps not got ambitions to play first team, but we're giving them the opportunity to play. But of course, the COVID situation, we're not quite sure how we're going to come out of that, to be honest. We've seen very positive signs, but, it's very easy for people to get out of the habit of playing rugby, unfortunately. And it's been well over a year now since some of the lads have played. And, the positive signs, we've been encouraging signs now that we've had training to start. We've been getting good numbers there, but the crux will be turning out sort of 2 teams week in, week out once we can get back playing properly, probably from September.
All right. Well, that was going to be my question, John. So your next game is September, is it?
Well, no, that's when the leagues will start, to be honest. The RFU, a bit like the government, have had the roadmaps that they're carefully following through, to be honest, Tony. And quite understandably, they're adopting quite a cautious approach in terms of what's been allowed in terms of contact and sports. It's the player welfare is so important. And certainly maybe our first team lads have been really working hard on the training, but there'll be others that may not have done. And there's a difference between training and physical side of it compared to sort of match knocks, etc. So the roadmap that the RFU have put out is almost sort of a non-contact glorified tig and pass to ensure that you gradually build up to. So we're hopeful. I mean, we're hopeful from sort of June the 21st, when hopefully things get back to sort of normal. There is clear signs of what can be done in terms of cranking up the sort of physical contact side. But we've got in mind from August, when hopefully we can play a proper game of physical contact rugby union, which is what the lads are looking so much for. We're looking to arrange a trip out to our friends at Windermere with a big bus and make it a social thing and a night out in Bowness, to be honest, and make that a social pre-season sort of friendly. Yeah. And the other thing, we've got good friends around the coast at Millham, and they run a successful sevens competition, which they normally have around May time, but they've pushed that back to August. And what they actually do, they open that up to the county, but they've got the facilities to camp there, to be honest. So we're hopeful of sending 2 squads of sevens lads to use it for pre-season, but to also camp and to partake in a couple of beers, to be honest, and support Millham. So they're 2 of the things we've got in mind, to be honest. And we'd like to sort of probably get something in place with our friends Furness as well. But I think, in all honesty, both sets of lads would say, after all the frustrations of all this time, playing something that's anything watered down and not properly physical contact wouldn't be of interest to both sets of lads. Where, there's a fierce rivalry on the pitch, certainly between the two, and playing a game of glorified tig and pass wouldn't be probably of interest to the lads against Furness. We'll be looking forward to getting down to locking horns with them properly shortly.
So you could never see you guys sort of joining forces, John?
I would never say never, to be honest, Tony. The important thing is that, it's absolutely amazing the way sort of rugby has filtered away, that you've got 2 rugby union sides in Barrow, half a mile apart, to be honest. There's that real fierce rivalry. To be honest, off the field, the lads have never been closer, but on the field, you've still got sons on both sides of lads of my sort of era that there's that rivalry between them. But off the pitch, they are mates and they go knock around together. So I think, to be honest, breaking down that rivalry would be very difficult. But at the end of the day, the game comes first. And if it meant that rugby union in a few years' time managed to survive in Barrow by having a sensible amalgamation, I've got a lot of time for the Chris Reid and the lads at Furness, John Mallinson. So I would say never, but there is definitely a fierce rivalry between the 2 sets. But if we were foolish enough to allow both clubs to fail instead of allowing one rugby union club, we'd be wrong to at least explore discussions around that route, to be honest, Tony.
Yeah. Well, we've had Jason Meadows on the show before. John, he's the coach, isn't he, of the first team?
Yes, Jason does a tremendous amount on the coaching side of it. My sort of main role is obviously the admin and the off the pitch stuff. Obviously, staying close and supporting the lads. But Jason's the one that's there on a wet Wednesday night in November with hailstones down his neck, encouraging the lads to train, to be honest. And Jason does a tremendous job, and a lad that is well respected and got a lot of time for at the club, to be honest, Tony.
Yeah. So do you train one night a week or 2? What's the training regime?
The main night is a Wednesday night, but to be honest, we've got a training pitch there that's floodlit. But with all the sports that we do have at the club, we do hire an all-weather pitch during the real wet, windy, because the pitch obviously cuts up badly with all the use it gets, so you can get better coaching. So we try and hire that for a Monday night, but to be honest, to get lads to train too is quite difficult with night school and all sorts of different other commitments, shifts and all sorts of different things come into it. The days of my time of if you didn't train Monday, Wednesday, you weren't selected on Saturday have long gone, and the main focus is to try and get lads there on the one night, and at the moment the Wednesday's the main night, but we do train a little bit on a Monday as well.
Yeah, when I was younger, John, many years ago now, I did spend a couple of years at Vickers football team.
I do remember, yeah.
And we used to train twice a week, as you just said, and if you didn't turn up for training, there was no way you were going to get picked. And I remember the committee used to go in a room and pick the team on a Thursday night. Does that happen still at Vickers at Hawcoat Park?
It does, to be honest, Tony. When I was captain of the club, we had 4 or 5 teams, and there was some real genuine selections taking place where you were coming out and it was 11 o'clock at night and players were hanging around to see if they were selected. It was a case of it being poor couple of games, you may get dropped, etc. But unfortunately, the selection now is ringing round, checking on availability and almost pressing gang lads to go away and play away in South Manchester when in their view, they've got better things to be doing. So it's lads like Jason and those that are doing that, ringing around, not almost selecting teams, it's checking on availability and persuading lads to travel, which is a sad state, but I'm afraid that's what's needed in the current climate. We're not alone in that regard, and it's a shame, but that's what you're up against.
So you're telling me, John, that the standard has sort of reduced over the years because of all of these issues?
No, I wouldn't say the standard. It's at first team level. We've got some lads there that are playing a good level. I've got a lot of time for, but it makes life a lot easier when you've got sort of 4 or 5 teams to be pressing on each other, and knowing that if you have a couple of bad games in the first team, you're going to get dropped to the A team. It keeps you concentrated on your mind, to be honest. So no, I'm not. I'll never be critical. The lads play to the best of their ability. Part of the problem is that you're not turning out the same team week in, week out, which used to be the case. It used to be it was injuries meant you weren't playing, but now with shifts and all sorts of different other reasons, if we could turn our first team out week in, week out, we'd have a half reasonable team. But unfortunately, for varying reasons, it's never a consistent team that we're selecting.
Yeah, I mean, I played football, John, because rugby looked a bit too tough, mate. I used to look across the pitch and think, crikey, I'm glad I'm not playing rugby. But, is it still brutal as it used to be?
No, it certainly isn't, to be honest, Tony. No, it's, we haven't obviously got, like the telly has the different cameras to see things from different angles. But I think there is, you do get 1 or 2 that are a little bit, over the top and overzealous. But in all honesty, I think it's hard but sort of fair in all the games that we play, to be honest. There's very few sort of old school thugs. I've got to confess, I played in the back, so I stayed well out of it. I didn't want to know what was going on up front, but people even mentioned there, Nobby Clark and Furness had, it was brutal. Some of those local derby games, it was a little bit over the top, in all honesty. That doesn't take place now. There is a fierce rivalry, but at the end of the day, lads have got to go into work on a Monday morning, and it's some of the things that were going on have been stamped out, to be honest. So, and to be honest, that's something that being a former back while I've been chairman, I've tried to sort of ensure that we play the game properly, hard but fair, in all honesty, and we wouldn't want people there that are causing those sort of issues. I'd like to think we've got a good reputation at Hawcoat Park Rugby and in the county, and that's how it should be. It's a social game. Play as hard as you can on it, but the days of cheap shots and that, very, very few and far between now, to be honest, Tommy.
Yeah, no, I remember at school, I went to the technical school as well, John, and there was the likes of Billy Strickland there on the wing. Nobody could tackle him our size because he was a few years older than us. And of course, in my class was John Harrison, who was a real Vickers Rugby Union stalwart, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, you're talking about, as I mentioned earlier, you've got lads like John Harrison, Jimmy Steele, Jeff Sim, who are all really good friends of mine, all recently passed away well before the time, and they're people that are just the heartbeat of our rugby club, to be honest. Amateur lads that are, casting granite hard as nails, but really good, solid lads on and off the pitch, to be honest. And Billy Strickland's still up the club now. He was a really good player, and that's the thing. The beauty of the club, we have got a really good sort of. We can't do much about it on the pitch, but as long as we support the lads and encourage the lads, and have a few beers and then reminisce of all stories, that's what keeps it going. To be honest, Tony.
So what league is the team in now, John?
Yeah, the first team are in a Cumbria league, to be honest. Probably a bit like most sort of sports, and I've been involved in this at the sharp end. To be honest, we've got lads that are travelling up to Sellafield, and we didn't want to be purely in a Cumbria league where the predominant teams are based up in the north of the county. You've got your Egremont, Whitehavens, Workington, Silla, Faspatria, Wigton. You've got some real sort of hotbed of rugby union clubs up there, and probably only ourselves, Windermere, down in the south of the county, Furness, etc., down this bottom end. So we were in up to a few years ago what was known as the North Lancashire Cumbria League, which was a good competitive league. It gave us a few games where we're travelling up to the north of the county, but also a few where we were travelling South playing sort of Lancashire, and it was a good competitive sort of stand. And our lads enjoyed turning south at the motorway and having a slow bus back and having a stop off at Guys at Garstang and these sort of things, having nights out in Wigan, etc. But having to travel to Cumbria every week is not giving us that option. But to be honest, the Lancashire clubs got fed up with travelling up to Cumbria. There's enough, almost we're all right Jack attitude down there, because there's so many clubs within half an hour of each other. Players rebelled and said, why do we want to be travelling up to Silla, 3.5 hours on a bus either way, sort of thing. So the Lancashire clubs voted and voted us out. So we've had to sort of form our own Cumbria League, and it's made the Cumbria clubs a bit stronger. But the league we were in a year or so ago was purely ourselves and the North Cumbria clubs, which our lads were getting a bit fed up with every other week travelling up to there, and the same travelling down here, but they weren't having to do it so often. But the current Cumbria League has Millom, Windermere, Furness, Upper Eden, and the other teams that I mentioned in the north of the county. So it's not a bad mix, to be honest. So we are getting those local derbies where we're not travelling so far, and having the opportunity for sort of late buses in Windermere, this sort of thing, which is so important to keep the lads' interest, in all honesty. The social side is as important as the playing side, in all honesty. And at times the rugby can get in the way of the socialising, in all honesty, is the order it seems to be in the current climate, to be honest.
Right, John, just want to talk now about the club in general. As you said before, you're a director of Hawcoat Park. So we've had COVID now for over 12 months. What impact has COVID had on Hawcoat Park?
It's had a tremendous impact, good and bad, in all honesty, Tony. Clearly, when it struck as a sports club, it dried up all our sort of sports, but also, as you know, we've got quite a decent sized hall there, and we had lots of functions booked in terms of, wedding night dues, etc., etc. Yeah. Plus your main stalwarts there, your Keswick to Barrow and your firework night, which are really big sort of important social events for us. So they sort of finished. So we've worked really hard in terms of reducing the costs as much as possible, but there is ongoing expenditure, even at a reduced level, that's required when you're in a lockdown. But all your income as generation has dried up. So we really were struggling in terms of survival. I've got to say, hands up, we have a paid general manager and a paid grounds person for the site that we have, and they were furloughed. And we've also obtained all the grants that we were allowed to do, which has helped us survive. But around that as well, we set up a crowdfunding scheme. And in all honesty, that has been successful, but it has also sort of encouraged us to continue and made us sort of feel that we're perhaps a little bit appreciated. Some of the comments that were put on the crowdfunding comments that, they're appreciating the number of sports that were a site. It's the only site in Barrow that allows for 9 sports to take place. And some of the comments of if the club was ever to fold, people from away that had enjoyed the club, that really did encourage us. So that ground funding has given us the chance to survive, to be honest, Tony, along with the grants and the furlough. So at the moment, we've got quite a steady sort of foundation there to kick on and go forward. At the moment, we're sort of cautiously wanting to. We've got plans for the club. It's all based around making sure that we don't overstretch budgets, and the crowdfunding money is not going to last forever. We've got to be very sensible about that. But at the moment, we realise that we're having functions at the club, and the front end was looking really sorry for itself. So we're having that cladded and painted at the moment. So that first impression as you arrive at the club, or you arrive, guests that come to sort of functions, at the moment, it really is kicking on, and a real good improvement there. So that's something we want to do. And one of the other main areas, I don't know if you've been to the club recently, but and the COVID has really affected it, but we've got a tremendous tennis hub there now, to be honest. We've got some grant funding from the Lawn Tennis Association, and the 6 floodlit courts there. We've not officially opened them as yet, but Keith Allen, and who's involved on the board from the tennis section, has done a tremendous job. And as I say, we're not officially open, but they're going to be open to the public, and I think it'd be a good thing if you had perhaps a separate call with Keith, and he promoted to the public the facilities we have at the tennis there. To be honest, it's open to the members, but it's also going to be open to the public, where they can literally go online, book a court, pay the fee with the card, get a passcode, and have an hour's use of some really top-notch tennis courts.
So we're back with John Horne there. Just before the break, we were talking about all the facilities up there, particularly the tennis facilities, John. So what you were saying there is that there's been a really good increase in membership lately.
Yes, of the tennis, and to be honest, that's something that we're a little bit conscious of. Certainly while I've been on the board, we've discussed that. It's such a good facility there with a number of sports there, but there could be sort of an argument that there's clubs within clubs, and we're determined as a sports club to break down those sort of and get communication and the sections working together. And there's various ways that on the social side that we can work better together. And that was happening before sort of COVID, but unfortunately, we're going to be picking up those pieces. But working together, I think that we can pull together and really take the club forward. And to see what the tennis have done, for example, some of the other sections have got their own ideas of improvements. We've got ideas how we can improve the club. But of course, a lot of it's sort of finance and making sure we don't overstretch the mark and do it sort of slowly but surely, in all honesty. But, I think, as I say, that crowdfunding really did reiterate to us how lucky we are to have the facility we have. And I think the people of Barrow and South Cumbria want the club to survive, in all honesty. There's still one or two think there's that Vickers connection. But the message we want to get across is that there's an opportunity to play 9 sports there, with things like archery and rifle shooting, plus your traditionals, football, rugby, bowls, cricket, etc. But there's other sports there, table tennis and the tennis, etc., all the different sports that, I think it'd be a real shame for the town if we lost a facility like that, to be honest. And what we want to get the message across is it's not anywhere connected to Vickers or BE now and all that. Clearly they own the site, but there's no input from them. So it's a community club where we want people to use the facility and try out different sports and play the sports, and of course to use the function hall and to get involved there. But we're looking to have sort of open days on the different sports where you can have a go at archery to see if it's for you, this sort of thing. And if anybody's got any sort of interest in taking up any of the sports, if you go on the website and see the different sports we have. So the tennis is the main example now where they've managed to sort of really put a tremendous facility in there. But as a club as a whole, there's scope there to improve a lot of those sections in sport to, finances allowed, to be honest, yeah.
So is the club actually open now, John, or are you having to wait till May the 17th?
No, we to be honest, we took the decision, and we've been quite lucky with the weather, but we opened up the last 3 Saturdays, so from when we could open outside.
Right.
And we looked at sort of marquees and different sort of things, but to be honest, all we've done is literally waiter service outside. We're very lucky. We've got Carmen Sale, who's on the board, and she's really good in terms of the safeguarding and ensuring that we keep right up to speed and comply fully with all the sort of COVID regulations. So she's done a brilliant job because, as you know, there is ambiguity and it's ever changing, that sort of situation. Yeah. But she's made sure that everybody feels safe. She's led it, but we've collectively made sure. And it's been great, just sat out in the sun, just having a beer, in all honesty, you can't get away from the fact that it's a driveway up to the car park, but you put some tables out there and you have friends that are seeing each other in some cases for quite some time, over a beer in the sunshine, nothing's better, catching up with all sort of stories. And the atmosphere really has been good. So we've opened up those Saturdays. I mean, we're looking forward to the situation. I mean, this Saturday's a poor forecast. We've got no weather protection, and we may possibly decide to not open up on Saturday because of the wet, if it is wet and windy. But from the middle of May, when we can use the inside, we've got that tremendous hall in there with a big screen. We've got the Euros coming up, the Lions tour, etc. And if you do get a poor Saturday, we can go inside. But once from May the 17th, when you can go inside, we'll be opening up, a few of the evenings. There's a hardcore of people go on a Wednesday night, for example, and have a chat, the rugby lads in particular, on a Wednesday night. But when the tennis starts, it gives them the option to come in. So the volunteers will be predominantly running it, but we are looking to get life back into the club. But the free Saturdays really have been enjoyable, to be honest, yeah.
So can you actually play tennis at the moment, or bowls?
Yeah. Each of the governing bodies have their own regulations, their own risk assessments you've got to comply to. But outdoor sports can be played. You've got to fully comply with the requirements in terms of the COVID regulations. But it's great to see. Certainly the tennis is back up and running. The balls from the first day they possibly could. They're booking the greens so that make sure there's only a limited number on there, etc. But sensibly sort of controlled, people can get back playing sports, which is what it's all about, to be honest.
I know times have changed, John, but I do remember when I was younger and I did play at Vickers, as I said before, there was something special about it. I can't quite put my finger on it, but back then, if somebody at Vickers asked you to go and play for their team, you couldn't say no. It was an honour in a way. It was a special. You felt special.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we've got one paid groundsman, but we've also taken on the Thorncliffe, what used to be the technical school pitches up there for all the junior football, etc. we have. But it's through the likes of Lee does a great job as our paid sort of groundsman, but Nobby Clark, who we touched upon there, he's up there sort of 2 or 3 days a week with divoting and repairing the football pitches, etc., etc. So we get complimented on the facilities, and certainly as we came out of COVID, there was it almost looked like the Serengeti jungle there with it overgrown. But the work that's been put in by the volunteers to improve it, I mentioned the front end. We've got a team of lads there inside the club painting, and it's quite a big club, as you know, inside. But we decided they needed freshening up. So I think the criteria for volunteering was you had to be over 70. But we've got a team of lads there that have gone in there that are all ex-players and members of the club, stalwarts of the club, painting and freshening the club up so that when we can get inside, the members will appreciate sort of a cleaned up, and it's all been done by, as I say, lads that fall in that group over 70, in all honesty. So this is what clubs rely on, to be honest. But the work that Nobby and the lads do outside, if you get a decent day, it's sunny, there's nothing better than looking over that site. I know I'm biased, I'm a local lad, but, the pitches, and, we want to make sure that people feel welcome there, in all honesty, and enjoy the sport, which is what it's all about, whatever that sport is. So,
final say then, John, what would you say to the Furness community then? How do they become a member of Hawcoat Park?
Yeah, there's various ways. They don't initially have to become a member. The clear thing is that come and try a sport. If there's a sport there, go on the Hawcoat Park website, go on and have a look and see if it's an interest, and come and give it a try, and have a wander up, have a chat with anybody once we're sort of back up and running properly. But we do have a general manager. Probably that's the best way, to be honest, is to contact Andy Woods, who's our general manager, both sports and functions. That's the key thing as well. We need that income coming in. So if there's anybody needs any sort of sportsman's dinner functions, we've got a hall there that can take up to 200 people spaciously. So the email address for Andy is bdm at hawcoatpark.co.uk.
Right, okay. Well, we'll certainly plug that, John, on the show on many weeks, because we don't want to lose this facility for the town, do we?
No, thanks, Tony. Yes, as I say, it's there for the local community. If they want to walk up that long drive past the bowls and have a pint and have a chat, you'll be made welcome. It's there for functions, all the different events that can be held in the evening and outside. There's different options there, and you've got plenty of space up there. But the key thing is it's a community club, and anybody that, whatever age, fancies a go at one of the sports that we can offer, the 9 different sports, please contact us and come and have a go. It's so important that that membership continues, and it may be that you try one sport and it may not be for you. But anybody new to the area, there's people finding out things about the club all the time. Quite a lot of people don't even know about the rifle shooting downstairs below the club. But that's a properly governed rifle section. So if that's your thing, give it a go, sort of thing. And they'd be made welcome by the rifle shooting section.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic, John. As I say, it's definitely a facility that requires the whole of the Furness community to come together and try and use the facilities as much as
it's one of those things that
possible.
People are just almost take it for granted, but let's be sure about this. It's was no support from BE now. We've signed up to a 30-year lease, and it's a peppercorn rent. We're not paying BE much, but all the upkeep, all the repairs of quite an aging building, and all the sites falls upon the Hawcoat Park sort of board that are running the situation. So we need people's support, otherwise we may lose that club. And as I say, the crowdfunding was tremendous. We really appreciated it. It surprised us the amount that came through from that. That gives us the chance to survive and then kick on in a sensible sort of way, and keep allowing the use of the facilities to anybody that wants to try a sport.
Yeah, absolutely tremendous. So, look, John, thanks very much for your time, mate, and all the best in the future following this COVID lockdown period. And I'm sure that the club will flourish in the future. Thanks very much.
Thanks for your support, Tony. Good to speak to you again.
Okay, mate.
Bye.
Bye.